live. Okay. Share. There we go. Where are you? I'm going to try this now. Can you still hear me? Yeah, cool. Okay. I'm hoping that's the right URL, Prof. Just do it for 01 then. I just pressed the share button on the link, and that's the URL I got. So it could be you just take off the thing. YouTube. The other thing Google says is it's as simple as finding your YouTube channel ID and then adding /live at the end of the URL. So it could be. So it, no, but that. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Cool. So hopefully that will work then. Yeah, Zoom will be live. And to be honest, when I'm looking at myself on YouTube, so I'm looking at my own stream, I'm live. I'm not lagging at all. So it's just the lag. I'll refresh. Yeah, I've got nothing at the moment. I'm just keeping. I'm just. Okay, cool. Just gone 402. I'll refresh. Not at the moment. Not at the moment. No. All the settings right in there. Now, does it matter that you did it at your time, 11, or should it be the GMT? Okay. 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 I've got nothing. Yeah, I can't see. It's 02 at the moment. That's why. Right, it's just gone 03 on mine. Let me try and refresh. No, nothing. Okay. Must be a checkbox or something we've missed. 20th December, yeah. I feel like when you published it, then at that time it opened a thread and a pop-up, basically. Yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm going to see if Cal's online because he would be a good one to test it as well. Obviously, the first few minutes of this live will just be me sounding like a crazy person talking to myself. Yeah. So 4:04 now. I'll refresh. Still got nothing. You said it. You just did it for 4:05, I think. This time again, you just edited it. Yeah. Okay. I'm good. Hello, COYS. Welcome. I'm testing a new feature, and I need your help. So any questions you've got would be fantastic. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk about Spurs away to Brighton tonight. Tough game. Both teams ravaged with injuries. Brighton have an extensive list, including the likes of Matoma, Adingra, Veltman, Fati, Enciso, March, Lamptey and Webster. And even Estepinian and Lallana aren't fully fit, so they may only have a place on the bench. Meanwhile, obviously, we are without key players in the spine, namely Van der Ven, Romero, Maddison, Bentancur, Bissouma. The list goes on, as we know. I'm expecting a very tough game, a game where we probably don't flow as well as we did certainly earlier in the season, a little bit more like what we got against Everton and against West Ham and games like that. It was a little bit more scrappy, bitty, and we won't quite reach the heights of Ange ball that we've reached in previous weeks. Not really down to the manager, but purely down to circumstance. Brighton have hello, Cal. Nice to see you. Thanks for the message. Any questions you've got, fire away. I'll be happy to answer them. I'm expecting Brighton to line up with, and I put this down earlier so I could go through it, with Verbruggen in goal, Hinchelwood, Van Heck, Dunk and Igor along the back, Baleba and Gilmore in the double pivot with Buonanotte, Gross, and I think they may play Joao Pedro from the left with Welbeck or Ferguson central. We've got some more people. GPK71, nice to see you. And Jack Dorr, my man with the streams always. Nice to see you. I'm thinking 2-2. I think it's going to be quite high scoring. Both teams missing players. And obviously for us, missing so many key defenders, I don't see us keeping them out with the way they play. So I can definitely see it being high scoring. I think that the fact that we're so good going forward under Ange, I do think we'll find the net, and we've got a very good habit of scoring goals. So I'm hopeful, but I can see it being high scoring for sure. So thanks for that, Jack. Is it time to free Dorrington, says Sim Spurs. More realistically, is Ange likely to go with Royal or Dyer? Thanks, Sim Spurs. That's a really good one, that. I think that he will definitely go with Emerson Royal tonight. I think we saw he wasn't happy with the Wolves game. He didn't like it. It was the one time we've kind of seen Ange kind of play down our performance, and he really wasn't happy with it. And I think it's not just down to Eric Dyer, but there are other features as well. I don't think Højbjerg played particularly well. But I just think he likes Emerson because he's a little bit more mobile. He fits a little bit better with the way he wants to play Ange. So I think he'll go with Royal. He doesn't strike me as someone that just throws young players in. I don't see it. I mean, we talk about Udogie and Sarr, but they had extensive first team experience in other leagues, in other countries, whereas someone like Dorrington, as big as a talent as he is, hasn't played a minute of kind of senior football. So it would be quite a big step to kind of throw him in. So I don't think he'll play Dorrington, no. Would I personally? I'd be tempted to play either Dorrington or Phillips. But I totally understand where the manager's coming from. At the end of the day, you're under so much pressure as a manager, particularly when you're at the top end of the Premier League, that, and we all do it, myself included, scream for young players. But, Ange has insights that we don't possibly have into training, how ready they are when they go up physically against, the likes of Son in training, for example. How do they cope? How do they cope against Richarlison? We don't see that. So I think we have to just trust in the manager, and it's early enough in his reign to give him the benefit of the doubt with young players. I think we saw even with Poch in the latter days that he stopped giving young players opportunities. Partially that was because he did so well. We were at a different level and it's harder then to give them a breakthrough. But Now, I don't think he'll play Dorrington. I've waffled on a bit there, but that's my thoughts on it. Oh, what's this? Cal, not related to today's game, so just a bonus for later. Sonny's right foot or Bale's left foot? Oh, blimey, that's a question. I think Son has probably got the best curling shot on both feet from 25 yards consistently that I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a player consistently score off both feet from that kind of position as well as Son has. He's just an absolute freak of nature, to be honest. Hence why his XG over performance is always so high. So I'd probably go Son, Cal. As much, I love Gareth Bale. He's like one of my heroes, but also Son's longevity for us, certainly, what he's done. It would probably have Son's right foot just ahead, I think. I'm sure someone's going to burn me for that in a little while. That's a nice question from GPK71. Who out of the current crop of youngsters in the first team squad am I most excited about? Oh, so you've said Sarr. Hard to disagree with you too much. It's got to be Sarr or Udogie, right? I think Udogie, for his age, is just unbelievable, both physically and technically. The ease at which he came into our team and just looks top class. Please don't jinx him for tonight, but no, he's a great player. I think he's a great player, and I think Udogie Sarr, it's a toss of a coin, really, isn't it? I think it's easy to make arguments either way. I'll probably go with Udogie because I'm a big fan. I watched him last season through Udinese, and he's even surpassed my expectations, to be honest. Sim, you think it's daft? Bale's left foot it was outrageous. It was. I think Son is still underrated. I mean, what he does from outside the box, on how many times has he scored those goals for us on both feet? I just think the guy is just a magician. And look, it's like comparing like Messi and Ronaldo, isn't it? You're talking about two absolute greats, to be honest. So I'll stick with my guns. I'll say Son, but I appreciate Bale and how good he was. One of my favourite ever players. Spurs Street, nice to see you, mate. Hi, Nick. What new signing has surprised you the most recently, good or bad? It's between Vicario, Van der Ven and Maddison, all in their own way. I think Vicario has to take it for me, purely because I didn't really know much about him. I did a bit of research. I saw some really positive stuff, some real positive stuff from like Empoli fans and Serie A fans. Watched a little bit of footage. When it comes to scouting, goalkeepers aren't really my thing. I hold my hands up. But I mean, the guy has come in and he's just been absolutely. But he looks to me like, along with Alisson, looks the best goalkeeper in the league. He's calm in possession. He's kicking. He's not Glenn Hoddle in terms of his passing, but he's very, very calm. You just feel you don't panic like when Hugo used to get the ball. He used to panic, right? I'd be at every game and I'd be on the urge of falling out my seat, having a heart attack pretty much every time he got it. Whereas with Vicario, I feel like he's just calm. He breeds calmness throughout the defence. And his shot stopping is just, something to say. That one from Dan Juma the other night, at the angle he tipped it over the bar was just phenomenal. And even the one off the crossbar, he adjusted his leg in like milliseconds, and that made a difference. So I would go Vicario, but I've also been really surprised by how ready Van der Ven has been and how mature he's been. And I didn't expect Maddison to be this good out of possession. And that's the thing I was worried about with him. And he's been so good that, I take my hat off to Ange because he's seen something there. And like the guy's just been absolute world class until his injury. So I'd go with Vicario, I think, Spurs Street. I think it's just been absolutely unbelievable. Okay. Alisson has had a few problems with his feet. I just think his kind of overall catalogue of games and stuff, he's probably the best goalkeeper for me. And I think Liverpool have had some problems structurally with their team, and I think that's affected Alisson as well at times. But I think Vicario has been phenomenal for us. Van der Ven, hard sim. I think that's hard. Definitely you can make a case of Van der Ven. I'd seen a bit of him, very, very raw, and that's what surprised me with Van der Ven is how all of a sudden he looks so mature for us. And I think that's probably a case of the right coach at the right time with the right group of players. And sometimes that kind of mix, that alchemy is what just takes a player's levels up. And I think we saw that with Van der Ven, because he just looked like a 26-year-old prime world-class centre-back, not a 22-year-old that's just come into the league. So yeah, that's it. That's Van der Ven's a great shout, to be honest. Any questions about the Brighton game? Anyone? Oh look! It's my alter ego, Nicola Berti. Good afternoon, Nick. We never speak, so it's nice to get the chance to ask you something. Yes, so okay. If you had to pick one centre-back this winter to come straight in without adjustment, who would I pick? Hashtag never wear red. Okay, well, Nick, Satiri, as I know you, I would probably go with. I would have gone for Tapsoba, but that's not viable anymore since the summer. I think Todibo is probably the best shout in terms of his overall ability. But I think, as we mentioned the other day, Tosin from Fulham could be quite a shrewd one to go for. Already adapted to the Premier League, playing for a pretty decent side in Fulham. You know, they're a bit up and down, but they're generally a pretty decent side at the moment. And he has a lot of the qualities that we need. He's quite quick. He's very tall. He's very strong aerially, which is actually something we don't have much of. And data-wise, he came out very, very good when I looked at that in the summer. His data was excellent. So I'd probably go with... It depends on the risk, right? If you're going for Premier League adaptation, Tosin is probably the standout because he's already playing in the Premier League. In terms of overall ceiling and ability, I go to Debo because I think he's probably got the biggest ceiling of the players we're linked to. Interesting on Dragusin, though. I haven't seen much of him at all, but we know that Paratici brought him to Juve, right? So he's had a pretty good track record with the young players he's brought in. So that could be an interesting one. I'm just checking through this. Vicaria's done well. That's Simspur saying about me not typing. You can see. It's not it's actually a real person, Nicola Bay. It's not just me, COYS. You can see that now. Maybe we'll get him on camera one day. See, I can prove it once and for all. I mean, to be honest, we spend most of our time in Chit King together before games, so that's where you'll usually find us. Jack, you got another question? How many do you think we'll bring in the January window, and what positions besides centre back? Look, I've been saying this over and over. I'm probably boring people to death. Winger, for me, is the position that I would throw all of our funds at. And actually, because I'm on kind of camera, I can probably explain a little bit more tactically rather than just in words. So for me, the way we play, the way we build up and play through the lines is absolutely sensational when you consider how little time Ange has had. If you watch a lot of our moves, when we progress into the final third and we get the ball wide, a lot of the moves slow down. The momentum breaks down. The player has to cut back. We end up recycling, and we keep the ball relatively well. We do that well, but I think we're lacking a little bit of cutting edge in the wide areas. Someone who, like when you watch Arsenal, Saka picks up the ball, Martinelli pick up the ball. They're two very good examples, or Doku for Manchester City. There's an aura about them. There's an electricity in the stadium when they pick up the ball, and you know that the majority of the time they're going to cause that fullback a massive problem, and they're going to beat them either on the inside to combine and shoot, or go outside to get to the byline and cut the ball back, which is what Ange loves. And for me, we don't have that type of player. Decky is a creator from wide, but he likes to drift into pockets and find little spaces, which he's very good at. Johnson is a very direct runner. I think his role will very much be using his pace off of the ball to cause teams problems, like the Everton first goal, where he made that run in behind, Sarr fed him in, and then Johnson played a really nice cutback. I think that's how we can utilise Johnson and then get him doing a bit more direct running over time as we train him. And Son, and there's been a big debate on COYS about Son's best position. For me, he's never been a touchline winger. He's all inside forward, right? That makes those curving runs in behind the striker. And if you look at so many of his goals for us over the years, they come from those central positions, almost like a striker, where he'd combine with Kane or he'd combine with Dele and Eriksen. He'd rotate positionally and he'd end up in these little pockets using his movement, which is world class. But his dribbling's always been inconsistent. He's not what you call a dribbler, Son. He can do it. I mean, he did it against Trippier, but Trippier is not a great defender. I think we've seen in the following games Son kind of revert back to his level in terms of dribbling. It's not really a one-on-one player. So, I mean, Nico Williams was the standout for me at Atletico Madrid. There's a release clause there. Whether we could convince him if we activated that, I don't know. Do we go for a short-term option, someone like Jota? Do we go for a young player like Nusa? That's the questions, really, that I think I'd love to know what the club are thinking behind the scenes, but I really think a dribbler is a huge piece of the jigsaw that we're missing, that I think will raise the ceiling of our team at a significant level and get us competing with the top 2 or 3. I think that's the kind of missing piece. When Madders comes back and we have yet another winger, where does Decky play? Well, Sim, for me, Decky would play either off the right, and then you'd have a new winger competing with, say, Johnson, for example, for the left-hand side. Johnson can also play on the right-hand side. So you've got options there to actually rest and use players off the bench, which we haven't had. Or you play Decky with Maddison in certain games where teams are playing low block, and we go with, say, Basuma or Bentancur, and then you go with 2 really kind of 10 number 8s, like City did with Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne with Rodri for quite a long period where they did really well. So that's how I would incorporate. I think it's really important that we give Ange all different types of tools so that he's got either options on the bench or on the starting 11 that can really change the game for us. And at the moment, I think you see we don't have someone coming on or playing that can just burn people one-on-one consistently. And that, to me, is the one profile of starting 11 player that we don't have that I would be looking to sign. Hopefully I've explained why I think it's so important tactically. Cutbacks are the hardest thing for low blocks to defend as well, right? Because when 6'5" defenders, 6'4" defenders are sitting in the box, they want to defend crosses. What they don't like doing is having to adjust their body position in a split second to deal with a low cross, because they've got higher centre of gravity and they don't want to be turning away to quickly, try and adjust for a cutback or a fizzed low ball across the box. And that's why you see so many of those crosses lead to own goals, second balls that end up going into the back of net, things like that. So I think getting a player who can get us into those areas more consistently, like Arsenal and Man City do, is the kind of thing that takes our team probably from here, starting 11, to here, and allows us to compete at another level, really. I think I missed a question there. Is our centre-back search stuck on 2%? I don't know. I mean, for me, I think we need a centre-back in within the first few days of January so they can get used to the system, the players, and obviously whoever comes in is going to be thrown in at the deep end, because they're probably going to have to play, if they come in time, away to Man U, which I know they're not doing great. They've still got a lot of pace in their team. So it's going to be a tough one for whoever comes in for us, to be honest. Decky said he'd started as a midfielder and really likes it, so it's good to have an option. Yeah, I agree, Jack. I think Decky, the type of player to look at him is like Bernardo Silva, right? Who can play off the right, who can play centrally, and that flexibility, his work rate, wherever you put him, he's going to work his socks off. And so I think Decky will almost certainly always be in the 11 somewhere. But it would be good, wouldn't it? It would be nice to actually have him on the bench sometimes, have the ability to bring some of that quality on, because we've got options. So that's how I feel about Decky. Sim, you're saying actually think that centre midfield might be more important than wing at the moment. We're making the chances, but we're losing a lot of short term in terms of our depth because of injuries. I don't think you can argue with your point. I think you're fair enough what you're saying because we're just completely decimated there. In terms of what our team needs kind of medium to long term moving forward to really take it up a level, that's why I think the wing is more important. It's a question of do you use your budget to plug a short-term gap, which actually we're really strong when everyone comes back, or do you use it to plan ahead and think more kind of 2 seasons in, 3 seasons in, and about your long-term squad, your long-term team? And I think that's the job that Ange and the recruitment staff have, is deciding and getting the balance right, isn't it? Because we don't want to have our season completely fall apart, but we have to make a decision on what position we prioritise. I think centre back, I think we all agree, we haven't got a third centre back that Ange trusts, right? Davies has done an admirable job, a better job than I anticipated. So I think actually in terms of covering Van de Ven, it's not the end of the world. So I think a right-sided centre-back is the obvious one because Romero gets so many injuries and suspensions that you need someone of quality to rotate. Sim, you think we need to upgrade the centre midfield in either January or the summer? I'd be interested to know what your kind of 6 centre midfielders would be in terms of squad depth. So if two 6s, and then 4 8s that alternate, who you think we have now and who you think we should go for then. I kind of see it as Bentancur or Basuma probably competing for 6, with Bentancur also capable at 8. I think obviously we've got Sarr. I'm a big fan of Gio, as everyone knows. I think Gio can play multiple roles throughout the midfield. He can play 10, he can play 8. And obviously we've got Maddison and we have Kulusevski who's capable in midfield. So I think if you look at, say, Maddison and Kulusevski as being capable as the more creative ones, Sarr and Lo Celso being capable as the transitional kind of 8s, and then Basuma and Bentancur being capable as the 6s, with Bentancur also being able to cover 8, I think that's quite good, not just quality, but depth. Obviously, we've just been decimated with the amount of injuries. If we were going for a centre midfielder, I think probably a young player that has high potential that we can develop without a lot of pressure on them would probably be one. So maybe someone like, I think Adam Wharton at Blackburn we were linked to. He looks a really good talent. He's a young number 6. I mean, I love Skippy. I have some concerns over the way we're playing, and I feel like his development has stalled over the last couple of years. He's had that injury, played under Conte. I mean, I'm a little bit worried, but I want to see him get maybe a run of games with Ange before I get too concerned, because he's a great young player who was Skip. And my main concerns with that come from press resistance. So actually one of the things I was going to talk about with the Brighton game was the fact that we are missing a significant amount of what I call press resistant players. And that's making it really hard for us to play out in the way that we did earlier in the season. So if you think about earlier in the season, we had Romero, Van de Ven, we had Basuma, and we had Maddison. And they are all highly press resistant. Whereas, and Sarr is decent. Sarr's decent. He hasn't quite got the body turning and body position right. But he was decent. But then Davies, Emerson, Skip or Højbjerg is quite a big drop off in terms of press resistance. And it doesn't take much when you're at the Premier League level for it to have an effect on the team. And that's one of but Benny's probably the most press resistant player we've got, Spurs Street. Yeah, you're right. And I think in the Villa game we saw that. I mean, the amount of times he just took the ball on the half turn, he just turns what looks like a dangerous thing for us into an attacking opportunity. And that's why I have fears about Skip and Højbjerg, to be honest, whether they can kind of step up to that kind of level of press resistance. Skip's got more chance because he's younger and he's got more development time. And he showed elements of it when he was younger in the academy days when I watched him. So I feel like there's still an opportunity for Skip there if he gets the games. Just want to check I've not missed any other questions. Cal, you mentioned about press resistance. Hopefully I've answered that there. When do we need to start seriously looking for a backup keeper? I would probably look in the summer, Bob, to be honest. But we've obviously signed Force for another year. But I think we need to consider it because Vicario is so good and so important to the way we play that is Force capable of keeping us at even a decent level in the same kind of style? I don't think so. So I'd probably look at that in the summer. Thoughts on Dragusin? I don't know much. I don't know much about him. I've watched some footage. I tried to watch back a couple of Serie A games. He looks aggressive. He looks relatively mobile, good in the air. I think he looks a pretty good profile fit for Romero as a Romero cover alternate. Whether he can play the Van de Ven profile as well, I'm not sure. I think ideally the club are probably looking for someone that can play with either player. And then you've got Davies who can also cover Van de Ven, which gives you a nicer amount of options there. But I mean, as I said, he was brought in by Paratici, right? So he's been to be fair to him, has been pretty good with the young players he's spotted. So that's one to keep an eye on, I think, for sure. Cal, you're saying about we only really have Lo Celso and Kulusevski that are pressure resistant today. Not sure if Gio's ready or still a bit injured. Yeah. Sarr, like I said, is medium pressure resistance. I don't think he's got his body positioning. When he receives the ball, sometimes he receives it a bit rigid, a bit square on. It can make it difficult for him to turn. He's also quite tall, which can make it a bit more difficult. He doesn't protect the ball amazingly sometimes. He's a little bit inconsistent in that regard. Whereas even Basuma, when he was off form, for example, he's a pressure-resistant player. You just notice it because he starts giving the ball away, which he doesn't when he's on form. Who do you think will be Brighton's most dangerous player today? Their most creative player, their best all-round player, for me, is Pascal Gross. Their creative hub, everything good normally goes through him. The question is where they're playing today, right? Do they push him out to the left to cover for the fact they've got no wingers, basically? Or do they push João Pedro out, who I think could be a danger man as well, and play Gross centrally? That's the thing I've been kind of toying with when I look at their lineup. I kind of feel like they might put João Pedro to the left and play Gross centrally with Gilmour and Baleba. So Gross is their most creative player and their hub. In terms of dangerous in the final third, watch out for João Pedro because he's definitely got something about him and he seems to cause teams a lot of problems. So that's who I would probably keep an eye out for. Be interesting to see who they put out left. I'm very interested to see what they do there. Do I think the Celso's shown enough fitness-wise on the pitch to keep him playing beyond the summer? Spurs Street, I think I'm a big fan of Gio. As I've said, my only question mark with him has been the fitness because he didn't get a single injury until he signed for us in typical Spurs fashion, right? This always seems to happen to us. If he can't keep fit between now and the summer, unfortunately, we may have to look at an alternative because you need to have players that are relatively reliable. You can't have a player that is constantly getting injured, especially in such a key area of the pitch, I think, where, if he's coming in as a rotation, but he's always injured, you've basically not got a rotation, which is obviously going to cause major problems. So that's if he can't keep fit to the summer, I'd probably look at moving him on. Unfortunately, I'm a very big fan. Given we have 4 very young but highly rated centre-backs, should we look at older players? Could we? Yes, we definitely could, Bob. Question is who we go for. Can we find older centre-backs that have that mobility and the energy that Ange wants? That's the question mark. Trying to think of some off the top of my head that would fit the bill, really. This is such a difficult one because the role that the centre-backs play in our team is so exposed that it's really difficult to find players that fit that particular style. I think that's why he's going for younger players that've got that mobility and energy that can constantly recover. Maybe one of the reasons we're also seeing so many hamstring injuries as well, unfortunately. So I'd probably... We've got Vuskovic is 16, so realistically he's probably going to need another 3 seasons or so before he's kind of in contention. You don't very often get 18-year-old centre-backs. So probably till he's about 19. You've got Dorrington and Phillips are probably slightly ahead of him in terms of age. You don't want to block them, so I totally understand where you're coming from. It's not easy to find someone older that also fits exactly what Ange wants. That's where I think the problem is for us with that. Yeah, we've got Vuskovic, Cal, coming through. That's right. Yep. Nicola Berti, would you sell Richie? And if so, who would be my ideal striker option of the ones around? Still never wear red. Yes. If you don't get what he's referring to, unfortunately, I had to wear red Santa pajamas on Christmas Day morning because my 2-year-old daughter was guilt tripping me into putting them on so that we were matching. I was not best pleased because I do not wear red. So it's safe to say my friends have given me a lot of grief over that. And I've also had words with my wife that won't be happening anytime soon again. Would I sell Richie? Yes, I would. Probably in the summer, realistically. I'm interested to see how he gets on till then. I just think he lacks technical ability and technical consistency to play at the highest level. I'm talking top 2, top 3 Premier League and Champions League and deliver enough for us in that position. Who would I go for? I think we both mentioned we both like Benjamin Sesko at Leipzig, and he's not getting that much game time. So that would be one to potentially look at. I quite like the look. I've only seen a very little amount of him so far, but Joshua Zirkzee at Bologna, you've probably seen more of him watching so much Serie A, Nicola. I like the look of him. He looks a really good all-round striker. So, and apparently he's got a release clause like 22 million euros, which, if Paratici is still doing some consulting for us, might be something that we take a look at. So I'd probably look at one of those. Marcos Leonardo, a Brazilian striker, has been linked as well. He looks quite a good live player. Again, he isn't one I've seen extensive amounts of, though. So there isn't anyone I've seen loads of. I say, yeah, go and sign him. It would be an area I'd probably want to do a bit more digging, really, and look into players more. I would use Son striker for most games because I think his movement is elite. And then I would use Richarlison as the alternate, as like a box presence for certain games. And then in the summer, reassess Richarlison. But I think you're probably the same as me. I think from the conversation we've had before that neither of us are convinced about him technically. And I think the higher up you go in the league, the more technically secure players you need. So that's probably be the reason I'd go for it. I know you see him do moments of kind of flicks and stuff, but I'm talking about technical consistency. It's something that Delhi actually struggle with a bit as well. Technical consistency is delivering basic passes, basic slick touches on a very consistent level. Whereas Delhi, for example, would do ridiculously fantastic flick, but then he would struggle to make a 10-yard pass. And that lack of consistency technically in the basics of the game can really harm you when you get to the kind of higher level when you're looking to try maybe win. I'm not saying we will win the league. I would love to win the league, to compete to win the league, say, for example, or compete at the highest level of the Champions League consistently. I think you need that level up in terms of technical ability. And I don't think Richarlison fits the bill for that. Any other questions? Have I missed any questions from anyone? Question. I think I've answered. Score today. I'm just looking to see if I've missed any here. Yeah. If money, if money were no object, what one world player would I sign to improve us, but for fun? Don't include Prem players. Money's no object. Well, that's a great question. That is, Sim. Mbappe, maybe? Money's no object? Mbappe playing off the left, he likes to come inside a little bit, but I mean, if you got him running at people consistently, you see one-on-one, he would destroy teams, and he's a goal threat, which that's the difficult thing with a winger, right? Is finding someone that can do the dribbling part, but also has the goal threat, because you need goals from your front three in modern football. You've got to be getting goals across the front three, and that's the real difficulty, I think, in finding a winger is someone with the goal threat, because even some of the players I like, for example, like Nico Williams, at the moment where he's not scoring a massive amount of goals. It's about whether they can step up in a better team and at the age, whether they can develop into a goal scorer. I think Doku, for example, has already shown signs for City that he can go up a level in terms of his goal scoring. It's finding someone that fits that. I'll probably go, it'd have to be Mbappe, I think. Mbappe. I mean, can you imagine his pace and his dribbling ability on the left-hand side? The man, at times we isolate players in that area. He would absolutely tear teams apart, man, for us. I think I'd love to see a bit of that. But unfortunately, in the real world, that's never going to happen. But Ange teams don't really use centre-forwards, do they, historically? No, Bob. So he what he likes is just someone that's a killer in and around the box primarily. So like Kane, for example, being such an all-round striker was, I think, quite different to what Ange has had. Like Celtic, Kyogo, for example, could go ages in a game without touching the ball, but then bang, he appears in the box, scores a goal. And I think we've seen with Son and the way we use Son parts this season, where he maybe wasn't in the game that much, like away to Burnley, he wasn't in the game that much, and then all of a sudden, one quick move, he was in the right place, finished it easily, and he's clinical, right? Son's clinical. His XG over performance is crazy good, and that's one of the reasons Son's so good. So yes, you're right. You're looking for someone that really, ideally, sniffs out chances and has good mobility to get in behind little bursts of like 3-4 yards to make movement in the box, things like that. Talking of Delhi, would I take him back from Everton? On a football level, no. On a personal level, I wish him all the best and hope he gets back to form. I wouldn't take him back now. It's very hard to come back from where he's ended up, basically. So I would say no, unfortunately. Doku, not good enough defensively for the way we play, looking at the way he lost Son. What I would say about that, Bob, is that he was, to be fair, defending a counter-attack transition, like one-on-one. Most attacking players are not going to be great in that area. And for Ange, primarily the wingers, if you watch, while they press heavily, he doesn't want them coming too deep because he wants them to be threatening the fullbacks all the time. He does what I love, Ange. He makes the opposition worry about us. That's my dream manager, basically. And so I think Doku would be incredible for us because he can press opposition in the other half. And whilst he's not great at the other end, Ange would have us focusing on how we hurt the opposition. And that would be using Doku higher up the pitch. I think we've seen some elements with Johnson as well. There's been some times where I've probably criticised Johnson for not tracking back. But actually, when I've watched the games back, it's possibly a tactical thing where Ange is saying, actually, I want you to stay higher because I want you to make the left back think, well, actually, I shouldn't go here because Johnson's here. And if he hesitates the left back, then they can't press us as high because they're pressing with one less man. So I think there's definitely elements of our tactics that allow the wingers to stay high up the pitch. What have I made of Johnson? So that leads nicely into it, actually. Spurs Street. So I think people know I wasn't particularly keen on signing Johnson. I had some concerns. I've still got some concerns. I've got some concerns one-on-one, dribbling-wise. I don't think he isn't a dribbler. He isn't what I call a dribbler, a dribbling master. But what I have been really impressed with is he's absolutely rapid. His pace is frightening. He's even quicker than I thought he was. And I really like the fact that he cuts the ball back and crosses with both feet. There's been, two of his assists have come with his left foot, playing from the left, and one of them, obviously, at the weekend against Everton, came from the right. And I love the fact he looks for those kind of early balls across, and they're low. I really like that, and I hope that he can develop the consistency of that. But I really like the fact he goes off both feet with it. And I think the main thing with Johnson is I want to see more self-belief. He strikes me a little bit like Sessegnon, a little bit timid, whereas I want to see him have a bit more aggression, a bit more self-belief, and think, actually, I've got elite pace. If I run at this guy, we're talking like Gareth Bale style, right? Get the ball, push it, and go. I think he can do that because his pace is frightening, and I think it can be a real weapon. Certainly against the better teams where there's a bit more space, I think he's going to be a real threat. I think against low blocks, we need to add something else to the mix that we've got in our armoury. And I think that might be playing Decky, for example, with Maddison, for example, Johnson one side and maybe putting a dribble on the other side, for example, and having different attacking options. But that's what I think he's done. He's done well. I think he could have easily had more goals and assists as well. I think he's been a little bit unlucky. He missed a sitter against Everton, but to be fair, I think it was against Newcastle, hit the post twice. Prof, you've got one for me. We're approximately at halfway mark of the Premier League season so far. Who do you think is the best signing we made in the summer 2023 window? That is so hard. The player that has disappointed me the most. The next player will sell. The player who's most critical to our chance of success. You do love a tough question, Prof. That is very hard. The best signing. The best. I said about Vicario's impact. So am I being a hypocrite if I don't say him because of how good he's been? Maddison's been amazing. I think it's between Van der Ven and Vicario. And the reason I'll say that is I think Van der Ven transformed our defence. And because of that transformation, it allowed the rest of the team to click into place because it allowed us to play higher up the pitch. And that's why it's Van der Ven or Vicario. I think Vicario surprised me the most. Van der Ven's probably the best signing because of the impact he's had on the inside defence, I think. If I'm being a hypocrite, call me out, but that's kind of, I think, the way I see it. Player that's disappointed me the most. That's a tough one. He started really well, but Basuma has faded a bit, and I've been a bit disappointed that he hasn't taken games by the scruff of the neck a bit more. And I've been very disappointed with his lack of discipline. I don't want to be too harsh because he started the season very, very well. I mean, I think it's pretty testament to the way we've played that I'm not that disappointed with many players, to be honest. Even Richarlison, I wasn't expecting much of, and I'm pleasantly surprised with his turn of form lately, so I'm not going to say him. I'd probably go probably go Bissouma, but I don't want to be. It's not me saying he's been rubbish. I'm just a bit disappointed with his lack of discipline and lack of nous at times. I think he should have been a bit more of a leader on the field when we needed him. And I think he's cost us a bit with his lack of discipline. So I'll go with Bissouma. The next player we'll sell, I think, will be Eric Dyer or Lloris. I think they're the obvious options. If you're talking about someone not as obvious as that, I think it will be Brian Hill or Richarlison. If it's not one of those two, that's who I think. The player who's most critical to our chances of success this season. I tell you why I think that's so hard to answer, because we've already been decimated, and the team, to their credit and to Angie's credit, are hanging in there. They're hanging in there, and different players are stepping up to help out. Davies has stepped up. Emerson, to his credit, has stepped up. So, I mean, have we not already seen that? Like, Romero's been missing, Maddison's been missing, Van der Ven's been missing, and I know our form did cave for a portion of that, but that's because of multiple losses, right? Not just one person. So I think I'm going to say Son, because Son is the most consistent goal scorer we have. And if you don't score goals in this league, doesn't matter how well you play football, you're in trouble. And that's the player so far we haven't had to do without. And I worry a bit when Son isn't in the team if we have enough goal scorers. So I'll say Son. Hopefully, interesting to know what you think on that, Prof. Or anyone else, if you've got any thoughts on those questions, I'd love to hear what you guys think on that. Or any other questions? See nothing below. Let's have a little look. Let's go. What would your weakness you see in Ange as a manager? I'm absolutely in love with his style and the way he plays. What has been a weakness of his? That's a tough one. There's some good questions today. I like it. I think the only thing I could really give him some criticism for so far is probably maybe not using the young players enough. I caveat that with what I said earlier, which is we're not in his shoes. We don't see training. We don't see exactly what the progress is like. I feel like he could have maybe given the likes of Donnelly a few more minutes, particularly against Newcastle when we were like 4-1 up, for example. I feel like that was a time to maybe give a young player a few more minutes. Outside of kind of using youth players, maybe just a little bit of game management. And I hate myself for saying this because I'm all for all-out attack, right? I think anyone that knows me knows, to dare is to do. I'm all about that. But the Everton game, for example, the last kind of 5-10 minutes were out of control. I mean, the amount of times Everton exposed the right-hand side, and Porro was in midfield still, it was crazy. It was crazy to me that they were getting in that easily. And it's easy to just say it's Porro being out of position, but it's not, because his tactical role is to go into midfield, right? And he was still trying to do that. I think it was one instance where they broke and Porro and Skipper both switched off. And that's when Danjuma got in down the left for like the third time in a row, that you could maybe criticise the players. But I feel like Ange needs to maybe work on game management, because in the Premier League, every little margin gets punished. Whereas in, say, Scottish League for Celtic, he probably got away with that 9 times out of 10. In the Premier League, you just get punished for things like that. So that's the only thing I could really... I'm nitpicking, right? Because I think the guy has been an absolute wizard, to be honest. I'm in love with the guy. I think the way he represents the club off the pitch, the way he talks, I think he talks like he's one of us on COYS. Like, I often say about managers, they seem to lose their common sense because of the pressure. He just seems to have that common sense that he says things that you think, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Even when he picks the team, yeah, you might disagree with a player here or there, but you can generally see what he's trying to do. I think the one time he made a mistake with the lineup, really made a bad boo-boo, was against Wolves when he played. I think it was Bissouma, Højbjerg and Sarr. And I think we lacked balance because he didn't have the creative role in there. But again, I'm nitpicking. I think the guy's been absolutely incredible. And I love him. I absolutely love him. I just hope we give him patience if we do have bad runs. And I hope that we give him time to get who he wants in, and we back him to the full extent of our resources, because I genuinely believe this guy can. If anyone, he can win us the league or the Champions League. I genuinely believe that from what I've seen. I've never seen a coach transform and into implement a style of play as quickly as he did. Pochettino took like a year and a half, and as you'll probably know, I love Poch, but Ange, absolutely incredible so far. Even if we lose tonight, we lose our next games. There's circumstances that dictate why that's happening. So I hope we back him all the way and go for it. I think he's been incredible. Is Ange too injury prone? Really interesting, DC. I saw some comments from Celtic fans talking about them having a lot of hamstring injuries in his first season. I don't know if anyone's posted the article yet. If not, I'll try and find it. Basically, they had loads of injuries, and apparently in the second season, they had a lot less, and the players had adjusted to the workload. So it may be something that we have to go through in this first season. Hopefully, better squad depth and adapting to his training methods. Next season, we fare better. So fingers crossed for that. But if not, he may need to look at adjusting. FF Spurs, there's been a lot of talk of lacking a plan B in games we've lost. Given our current squad, do you think there are any changes Ange could make that he hasn't? As a follow-up, if we had to bring in one player as a plan B for games we're struggling, who would it be? It's funny, this plan B stuff, because, in the when we went down to 9 men and everyone, I think a lot of Spurs fans, most Spurs fans were really kind of backing the crazy way we went at it. I mean, I was loving it. A lot of outside talk was, you've got to have a plan B, or when you can't break teams, you've got to have a plan B. But really, what is a plan B? A plan B is just another way of scoring a goal, right? But we don't attack in one way. We attack centrally. We attack wide. We sometimes put crosses in. We sometimes look for low cutbacks. We sometimes look for central combinations to find our way through. I personally think it's just about being better at implementing plan A. And I think that's what you see. And little adjustments within that are just about changing maybe a player here because he's more in form, or a player that's got a slightly different skill set, things like that. But that's more in-game management, like kind of slightly different player profiles, right? The actual plan A we've got is phenomenal. And to me, it's just about giving Ange as many players in the squad so that he's got an armory at his disposal where he can say, right, this player isn't doing it today, but I can bring him on and he can do this specific thing better than him today. And that's going to help us against this opponent. So plan B, I think we all kind of see plan B as, lump it into the box for a giant striker. But when your entire game plan is, and the way you train and the profile of players you have is built around playing what I call top team football, what the top teams play, passing, possession, attacking football, you can start just chucking the ball into a 6'6" striker, but it's not necessarily going to work if you're playing against, the likes of Everton, who have got loads of giants anyway. I actually think the way you beat a team of, say, giant centre-backs, for example, that are sitting there, isn't to throw high balls in all the time. It's to play the ball on the ground, because giant centre-backs don't want to deal with things low down, as I explained a bit earlier, I don't know if you missed that. So cutbacks and things like that. So to me, plan B for me is finding more players that fit plan A. So it gives you more options. So you've got more chance of having players that are on form on that given day against an opponent, and different ways of tweaking player profiles against, if you've got a certain fullback playing, that you might want to put Kulusevski up against him. You might want to put Johnson or someone else. So that's how I would approach it personally. I don't know what you think about that, but it would be good to hear what your thoughts are. We seem to be picking Skip over Højbjerg. Do you think it's a player preference? Interesting, DC. We started with, he originally played Højbjerg, wasn't he? He was picking Højbjerg mainly over Skip. So I wonder if he's seen something that makes him feel like Skip is a better bet. Or has he just got to the point where he's like, no, Højbjerg needs to go. So he's just playing Skip because Højbjerg's going to be sold now. I don't think... I'd like to know the answer to that. I think Skippy's more mobile than Højbjerg. He reads the game the best defensively of most of our midfielders, to be honest. He's the best at reading interceptions and things like that. Certainly coming up through the academy, he was always excellent at that. And so in terms of playing six, he suits that really well. But yeah, that's it'd be interesting to see if he plays Skip tonight or if he goes back to Højbjerg. It'll be very interesting. Sim, the only caveat to that surely is sometimes players available don't suit the nature of the way we play, and does that best take advantage of those that we do? Sometimes, well, that's what I'm kind of saying, that we need to get a full squad of players that are all fully in Ange ball, that suit Ange ball, right? So that we can play Ange ball all of the time and relentlessly. Like when we get to 60 minutes, I think you notice second half at the moment, right? We die off a bit, our energy drops off. And where we're so thin on the ground with players missing, we can't bring on 4 or 5 quality players that keep that energy level up, that keep us playing relentlessly. And I think if we could do that, we would find ways through when games aren't going for us. I think we saw glimpses of it in games where we did struggle. I'll give you the Sheffield United game at home. We were struggling. It looked like it wasn't going to be our day. We were in big trouble. But I'm pretty sure Richarlison and Perisic both came on the off the bench in that game. And they both impacted the game in big ways. Perisic's delivery and constantly going 2 ways at the fullback created spaces for us. And Richarlison obviously had a part to play in both goals, and Perisic did as well. So I would say that better quality players that suit the way we play will help us establish a plan A that works 90-95% of the time. And a plan B is really just tweaking the given players that come off the bench on that day, because Johnson's not having a good game, so let's put him on instead because we've got a quality player on the bench. I really believe in that. I'm not one of those people who just believes in then okay, let's just chuck the ball in the box. It's not. I don't think the best teams do that. I think the best teams have steadfast belief in what they're doing. And you might get an extra man in the box. You know, Liverpool do it really well. They might get a fourth player charging into the box for crosses or something. You might tweak that. But I think in terms of completely changing your play style, I don't believe in that personally. I think Ange is similar. I think he wants you to commit completely to what he believes in, the method he has. Cal, I think we've seen that Højbjerg isn't good enough, but Skip hasn't had the same amount of chances, I think. He's getting those now. We've seen Højbjerg isn't really the right answer, so why keep playing him? Kind of hard to disagree with you too much on that. I think Højbjerg, his lack of mobility hinders him a lot in the 6 role because he gets isolated. People can bypass him quite easily. There's certain games he comes off the bench. I think he does really well. I think he gets stuck in. He helps give the team a little bit more energy again. But I think, like you said, Skip hasn't had the same amount of game time, right? So I didn't think he was amazing against Everton. I think he struggled a bit. But he hasn't played a lot of football. He hasn't got any rhythm, right? I'd like to see what he can do over a period of games instead. And I do think we all realise that Højbjerg's going, right? So do you not just play someone that might be there longer? Just coming back to something Prof said, he said Maddison. It's interesting, Prof, because Maddison, we have missed him a lot, but we have been missing him. I think Kulusevski's stepped up really well. I'm not saying we haven't missed him, but I feel like between Kulusevski and say Lo Celso, we've got good quality that can still plug the gap a bit. Whereas I feel like, Van der Ven was so important signing-wise. I think I said Son because of his goal scoring in terms of who's most important, because we have no other goal scorer that can get 20 goals. I truly believe that. Is there? I asked the question to any of you. Do any of you believe any of our other players at the moment, where they are in their careers now, can score 20 Premier League goals? Yeah, I'd be interested to know if anyone could type back to that and see what you say. I don't believe we do. Okay, I've got a few minutes left, guys, so I'll just answer these last couple of questions. Thanks very much again for helping us with this test day. We really appreciate it, and hopefully I haven't bored you too much as well. Jack, what will be our final league position this season? How many injuries are we going to have? Are we going to lose anyone else? So if we can get most of our players back by end of Jan, then I'm going to be confident and say top 4. If we don't, then I think 5th, because I have a lot of faith in what Ange is doing. And I think that's the aim, should be top 5. What would we have done at the start of the season? I had no expectation, right? It was like top 8, something like that. So, at the end of the day, if we collapse because of all the injuries, I think we really have to have belief in Ange and stick with him and just realise that we've been incredibly unlucky in that regard. But I'm going to go for, if we get most of our players back by end of Jan, 4th. If we don't get players back by the end of Jan, 5th. Follow up to the Son right foot, Bale left foot, Kulusevski's right foot, or Bale's right foot. Well, actually, Cal, if you remember, when Bale played for Madrid, he started to work quite heavily on his right foot, and he actually ended up pretty good on it. And he was going on the outside and delivering crosses quite a lot. So I'd probably say Bale at the moment. But I think you and I agree on this. I don't think Kulusevski's right foot is as bad as people say it is, and I think he uses it a little bit more often than people say he does as well. Even though I still think he needs to use it more. Reading Spur listened to the radio yesterday and hearing the news that Romero is now also out of a hamstring. Is there something going on with our training medical staff? The team obviously train very intensely and then play with that same intensity. Is there an argument that we're too intense at times? I think I actually spoke about that about 5-10 minutes ago. Ange actually had similar problems at Celtic, and they settled down in the second year. So it could be one of them things where the training load takes its toll initially, and the players' bodies will adjust to it. I think the time to worry is if this happens again next season. Then I think we really need to look at it and look at the training sessions and what we're doing. But I think we have to kind of ride it out for now and see if it's just an adaptation period, basically. So that's what I believe on that. Any other last questions before we finish? Been really good doing this. No. Okay, guys. I think we'll call it a day there then. Hopefully, I haven't bored you too much. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this. If it goes well and if everyone's happy, then and Profi's happy, most importantly, and the gnomes, then hopefully it'll be something we can do more often. And all COYS, anyone that wants to get on camera and talk and answer questions and give their views, it'd be great to see loads of COYS on here and interacting with everyone. So I've really enjoyed this, and hopefully many more to come for COYS. And most importantly for tonight, we can beat Brighton and really push for the push Villa and Liverpool, and most importantly Arsenal. But for now, it's come on you Spurs, and now I'm going to figure out how to finish this thing. So good luck to me. Thanks, guys. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm still there. Was that all right? Oh, thanks. All right. Okay. Oh, I don't like watching myself back.